Have you ever noticed how the loudest voices in the room aren't necessarily the ones with the most influence? In a world that seems to celebrate those who speak the most, there's a counterintuitive truth hiding in plain sight. True power often resides not in volume, but in control. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Think about the last meeting you attended or social gathering you were part of. Who actually commanded respect? Was it the person constantly interjecting, desperate to be heard? Or was it the individual who spoke deliberately, choosing their moments with precision? Stay with me until the end, because understanding this distinction might fundamentally change how you approach your interactions. We live in a culture that sometimes confuses noise with importance. Social media amplifies this misconception. The more outspoken you are, the more followers you might gather. But does being outspoken truly translate to strength or effectiveness? The evidence suggests otherwise. Consider the most respected leaders throughout history. From Abraham Lincoln's measured responses to Gandhi's strategic silences, these weren't individuals who dominated every conversation. They understood something critical that many miss. Restraint is not weakness, it's calculated strength. Has this ever happened to you? You've left a conversation, feeling drained after dealing with someone who monopolized every minute with their opinions, yet somehow their impact felt hollow. Meanwhile, when someone who rarely speaks finally offers their perspective, the room falls silent in anticipation. The world rewards those who demonstrate control. Control over their emotions, their responses, their timing. This isn't just about speaking less. It's about understanding when speaking serves a purpose and when silence is the more powerful choice. What you're about to discover might surprise you. Research in leadership and influence consistently shows that measured communication creates more lasting impact than constant verbalization. People who practice selective communication are perceived as more thoughtful, more credible, and ultimately more influential. The misconception that being outspoken automatically equates to strength has led many down a path of diminishing returns. They speak more, but influence less. They're heard frequently, but listened to rarely. They occupy space, but don't command it. The paradox is fascinating. Those who feel compelled to voice every thought often reveal a fundamental insecurity, while those comfortable enough to curate their communication display genuine confidence. One is reacting to the world, the other is responding to it. So what does this mean for how we navigate professional environments, relationships, and even casual interactions? What hidden advantages might be available to those who master the art of selective communication? Hit subscribe now to join our brotherhood of sovereign men. Don't miss another episode on your path to reclaiming your power. Revealing too much information is essentially handing others a detailed map of your inner world. Your fears, your desires, your next moves. I've witnessed countless scenarios where excessive transparency became someone's downfall. Think about it. When you openly share everything about your strategies, insecurities, or intentions, you're essentially arming others with ammunition they might use when circumstances change. Even those closest to you don't need access to every corner of your mind. This strategic silence creates something powerful. Mystery. When others can't immediately pinpoint your thoughts or predict your next steps, you maintain a certain psychological advantage. It's not about being manipulative, but rather understanding the value of measured disclosure. The most respected leaders, negotiators, and even the most fascinating people you know likely share this trait. They reveal exactly what's necessary and nothing more. I remember consulting with a successful executive who was facing challenges with his management team. His habit of thinking out loud and sharing every concern or half-formed idea was undermining his leadership. "They see all my doubts before I've resolved them myself," he explained. After coaching him to pause, reflect, and only communicate well-formed thoughts and decisions, the transformation in how others perceived him was remarkable. His team began to respect his judgment more deeply, not because he changed his thinking process, but simply because he changed what he chose to reveal. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the psychological dynamics at play here. There's a fascinating concept in social psychology called information asymmetry that explains why controlled disclosure is so powerful. When you know more about others than they know about you, you navigate social situations with greater clarity and purpose. This isn't about creating artificial barriers, but recognizing that thoughtful boundaries serve an important function in both personal and professional relationships. Consider how this principle manifests in different contexts. In negotiations, the party that reveals their bottom line first typically ends up with the less favorable outcome. In dating, people who maintain some element of mystery tend to generate more sustained interest. In workplace dynamics, those who carefully manage their personal disclosures often advance more successfully than those who treat colleagues as confidants for every thought and feeling. The journey toward mastering this balance isn't about becoming secretive or withholding, it's about developing discernment. It's learning to recognize which thoughts benefit from external processing and which are better refined internally before sharing. This discernment represents a form of emotional intelligence that differentiates those who move through life reactively from those who navigate it strategically. Behind the scenes of every significant leadership success story, you'll find this principle at work. The revelations that change how we view effective communication often contradict what we've been taught about authenticity and transparency. The hidden truth is that complete transparency is rarely beneficial to anyone, not to you, and often not even to those receiving the unfiltered information. If you've experienced situations where you've shared too much and later regretted it, write in the comments. Silence is strategic. I'd love to know I'm not alone in learning this lesson the sometimes difficult way. Even the most insightful minds understand that success often depends not just on what you do, but on what you choose to reveal. Take Machiavelli, whose political wisdom has echoed through centuries. He firmly believed in the power of concealment, keeping your strategies, your next moves, and sometimes even your intentions hidden until the precise moment when revealing them serves your purpose. This isn't about deception in the malicious sense. Rather, it's strategic wisdom about energy conservation. Every time you announce a goal prematurely, you're actually releasing some of the psychological tension that would otherwise fuel your pursuit. Think about it. How many times have you shared an exciting new project or goal with friends, felt that immediate rush of satisfaction from their approval, and then mysteriously lost motivation to actually complete the work? The science behind this phenomenon is fascinating. When we receive social acknowledgement for merely stating an intention, our brain registers a partial sense of accomplishment. That premature reward can significantly diminish the drive we need for the challenging work ahead. This is why many accomplished individuals develop an almost instinctive reluctance to discuss their works in progress. And let's consider the transformational power of silence from another angle. In our hyper-connected world, where continuous sharing has become the default, silence creates a sacred space where your authentic voice can emerge untainted. It allows your ideas to develop their full potential before facing the crosswinds of outside opinions. Think of it as protecting a seedling until it's strong enough to withstand the elements. This discipline of silence also sharpens your focus in remarkable ways. When you're not constantly processing how others might perceive your journey, you can direct that mental bandwidth toward the work itself. The journey becomes about genuine discovery rather than performance. Many breakthrough innovations throughout history emerged from periods of deliberate isolation, where creators could hear their own thoughts clearly without the noise of premature feedback. I've experienced this transformation myself. Early in my career, I would eagerly share every new business idea seeking validation. What I discovered was that each conversation subtly drained my enthusiasm until the idea faded away. Now, I practice what I call strategic silence, nurturing my projects privately until they're resilient enough to stand on their own merits. The difference in completion rate has been astounding. The hidden truth here isn't just about keeping secrets. It's about creating a protected internal environment where your most important work can flourish. It's about recognizing that premature exposure can sometimes be as harmful to a developing idea as frost is to spring blossoms. Now I want to go even deeper into this concept by exploring how this principle applies differently across various domains, from creative endeavors to organizational leadership, because understanding when to reveal and when to conceal might just be the leverage point that transforms your effectiveness. If this approach to strategic silence resonates with your own experiences, write "Silence's Strength" in the comments below. I'm curious how many of you have already discovered this powerful principle in your own journey. Here's one more crucial truth about mastering the art of silence. It requires genuine discipline. In a world where we're constantly prompted to react, speak, and express, choosing silence is a radical act of self-control. I've noticed that the most influential people I've encountered aren't necessarily the most vocal. They're the ones who have mastered the discipline of strategic silence. Think about it. When you're in a heated argument, the immediate instinct is to defend yourself, interrupt, or counterattack. But what happens when you consciously suspend that reaction? The space you create through silence becomes a powerful force field where you maintain complete control over your energy and decisions. It's in these moments of disciplined restraint that your inner strength becomes visible to others. This transformative power extends beyond personal interactions to professional settings too. I once observed a negotiation where the most successful participant barely spoke. While others scrambled to fill every awkward pause, this person would simply listen, nod, and occasionally ask a single pointed question. Their silence created such gravity around their words that when they finally spoke, everyone leaned in. The journey toward mastering silence isn't always comfortable. Our minds rebel against it at first. We worry that silence might be interpreted as weakness or uncertainty, but the revelation comes when you experience firsthand how silence actually positions you as the most centered person in the room. Subscribe and become part of a community that's committed to authentic masculine growth. In conversations specifically, silence functions as a powerful truth serum. When you don't immediately fill conversational gaps, something fascinating happens. People instinctively begin revealing more than they intended. Their discomfort with silence often leads them to disclose their true positions, concerns, and sometimes even their hidden agendas. I've witnessed negotiations completely transform because one party simply remained quiet after making an offer. This phenomenon relates to what psychologists call the discomfort zone, that space where meaningful growth happens. By resisting the urge to fill every silence, you're actually creating that discomfort zone for others, often leading to breakthrough moments in communication. Now I want to go even deeper into the practical application of strategic silence in everyday situations. The hidden truth about silence is that it's not just about not speaking. It's about creating space for something more meaningful to emerge. It's about recognizing that in certain moments, your silence speaks volumes more than any words could. What's particularly powerful about this approach is how it shifts the entire dynamic of communication. Rather than participating in the back-and-forth exchange that characterizes most conversations, you begin operating on a different level entirely, one where you observe patterns, notice inconsistencies, and sense underlying emotions that others might miss. If any of this resonates with your own experiences, type in the comments, "Silence is my new superpower." I'd love to know who among you has discovered this truth already. When you choose silence over words, you're building a mystery around yourself that naturally enhances your influence. People are irresistibly drawn to what they can't fully understand. Think about it. The colleagues who rarely speak in meetings, but when they do, everyone listens. They've mastered this principle without even knowing it. Their silence has created an aura of wisdom around them, and their words carry more weight because they're dispensed sparingly. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding human psychology. We value what's rare. When your words become a limited resource, others attach greater significance to them. I've witnessed this transformation in myself after implementing this practice. Conversations that once felt like battles for attention became exchanges where people leaned in to hear my perspective. The journey toward strategic silence isn't always comfortable. Our minds resist it initially because we've been conditioned to believe that constant verbal participation equals engagement. But there's a profound difference between being present and being noisy. True presence often manifests in thoughtful silence, in the spaces between words where genuine understanding takes root. What's particularly fascinating is how silence allows us to become observers rather than just participants. When you're not focused on formulating your next statement, you notice subtle dynamics around you, body language shifts, emotional undercurrents, and unspoken agreements. These observations become valuable intelligence that most people miss while they're busy talking. I've discovered that silence isn't about being ignorant or disengaged, quite the opposite. It's about creating the mental space necessary for deeper learning. The insights I've gained during periods of intentional listening have proven far more valuable than anything I could have contributed through constant speaking. This is the hidden transformation that occurs when you embrace strategic silence. You develop an ability to see beneath surface conversations to the true meaning underneath. The most powerful leaders I've encountered understand this inherent balance. They speak with purpose and listen with intention. They know when silence serves them better than speech. They recognize that words once spoken cannot be taken back, but silence always leaves room for possibility. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how strategic silence shapes your decision-making process. Many of us make choices based on the need to respond immediately, to fill conversational voids, or to demonstrate our knowledge. But what happens when we approach decisions from a place of thoughtful silence? The results can be revolutionary for your personal and professional life. If you've ever experienced this shift in your own communication style, write "Silence Speaks" in the comments section. I'm curious how many of you have already discovered this power. Now that we've established the power of eliminating digital noise and reclaiming focus, let's explore the profound transformation that occurs when you embrace this deliberate approach to your online presence. What I've discovered in my own journey with mindful digital consumption is that the quality of your engagement completely transforms. When you're intentional about your media diet, something remarkable happens. Your words carry more weight. Rather than firing off dozens of reactive comments across platforms, you begin crafting responses that actually contribute value. This shift isn't just philosophical. It creates a tangible elevation in how people perceive and respond to you. Think about the last time you encountered someone who speaks rarely, but with precision and insight. There's a natural authority there, right? That's the hidden truth behind controlled communication. It accumulates power while noise dissipates it. In our rush to participate in every conversation, we've forgotten the impact of measured, thoughtful engagement. The digital fortress I mentioned earlier isn't just about protection, it's about cultivation. When you create boundaries around your attention, you're essentially building a sanctuary where your best thinking can flourish. The revelation here is that focus isn't just a productivity hack, it's the fundamental foundation for developing wisdom in the digital age. I want to go even deeper into the psychological benefits this approach offers. Research consistently shows that people who consume less information paradoxically end up better informed. It's a fascinating contradiction. By reducing the volume of content you process, you enhance your capacity to actually understand and integrate what matters. Your brain isn't designed for endless input. It thrives on selection and reflection. The modern problem isn't information scarcity, it's meaning scarcity. Behind the scenes of endless scrolling is a mind desperate for coherence. When you deliberately reduce your inputs, you create the essential space needed for your brain to form connections and insights that would otherwise remain hidden beneath the digital deluge. This intentional restriction becomes particularly powerful when applied across your entire digital ecosystem. It's not just about social media. It extends to news, podcasts, videos, and every other form of consumption. The transformation happens when you shift from being a passive receiver to an active curator of your mental environment. What I find most fascinating about this journey is how it ripples outward. As your digital presence becomes more deliberate, your physical presence naturally follows. You'll likely find yourself more engaged in face-to-face conversations, more attentive to subtle social cues, and more capable of the deep listening that has become increasingly rare in our distracted world. If what I'm sharing resonates with your experience or aspirations, write mindful presence in the comments. Now, let's examine the practical systems you can implement to make this transformation sustainable in your daily life. Distractions are more than just annoyances, they're energy vampires. When your attention splinters across multiple directions, so does your power. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how exhausted you feel after a day of constant interruptions and task switching? That's because each time your focus breaks, your mental resources leak away like water through a cracked vessel. In contrast, when you channel your energy toward a single point, like sunlight through a magnifying glass, you create enough heat to ignite action. This is the hidden transformation that occurs when you protect your focus. The mind becomes not just more efficient, but more potent. It's why deep work sessions produce breakthroughs that scattered attention never could. Machiavelli, in his political writings, understood this principle centuries ago when he wrote about the prepared mind having distinct advantages. The strategic genius observed that fortune favors those who've developed mental readiness through disciplined thinking. His insight reveals an often overlooked truth. Preparation isn't just about gathering information, it's about cultivating a mind that can recognize and seize opportunities that others miss. Behind the scenes of every overnight success lies years of focused preparation. Consider how master chess players can anticipate moves far in advance. This isn't magical thinking, it's the result of thousands of hours spent considering possibilities, studying patterns, and developing mental models that ordinary players haven't built. The same principle applies in business, relationships, and personal development. The prepared mind doesn't just react, it anticipates and shapes circumstances. This mental readiness creates a decisive edge that, when applied consistently, compounds over time into what others might mistake for luck. Now I want to go even deeper into this truth. Prepared minds cultivate a particular kind of confidence, not the shallow bravado that comes from ignorance, but the quiet assurance that emerges from genuine competence. This confidence becomes visible to others and often determines how seriously your ideas are taken, how effectively you can lead, and ultimately how much impact you can have. The journey to developing this mental preparedness isn't glamorous. It requires daily rituals of study, reflection, and deliberate practice when nobody's watching. It means protecting your thinking, time as vigilantly as you'd protect any precious resource. But the revelations that emerge from this disciplined approach can fundamentally alter your decision-making landscape. If any of this resonates with your experience, write "prepared mind" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have witnessed the power of mental preparation in your own lives. In today's world, where your attention has become the most valuable currency, there's a hidden truth that most successful people have come to understand. People are constantly vying for your attention. Through social media, through their drama, through their emergencies that somehow always find their way to your doorstep. But what separates those who achieve greatness from those who remain trapped in cycles of mediocrity is their ability to guard their attention with unwavering discipline. When you allow others to constantly pull you away from your vision, you're essentially letting them redirect your life's journey. Think about it. How many times have you been deep in your work, making real progress, only to be interrupted by a notification, a call, or someone's urgent need that could have waited? Each time this happens, your mental momentum shatters and the pathway to your vision becomes clouded. This isn't about being selfish, it's about understanding the profound impact of focus on your transformation. The quality of your focus directly shapes the quality of your reality. When you maintain laser-like concentration on your objectives, you create an invisible shield that naturally deflects the trivial and magnetizes opportunities that align with your purpose. I've witnessed this transformation in my own life. Once I began treating my attention as sacred, reservations about my decisions melted away. People often feel entitled to your time, your energy, your expertise. But remember, while everyone has their own agenda for your life, only you have to live with the consequences of how you spend your precious attention. The world's most accomplished individuals have mastered the art of polite unavailability. They've recognized that their vision deserves their undivided attention, and they've structured their lives accordingly. This doesn't mean becoming isolated or uncaring. Rather, it means being intentional about when and how you engage with others' needs. By protecting your focus, you're actually honoring your potential. You're acknowledging that the unique contribution you're capable of making requires dedicated mental space. In a very real sense, guarding your attention is an act of respect toward your future self and the impact you hope to create. The mental clarity that comes from sustained focus creates a momentum that carries you through obstacles that would otherwise seem insurmountable. Your mind becomes sharper, your decisions more aligned, and your progress more consistent. This state of flow is where innovation happens, where breakthrough insights emerge, and where your highest capabilities are accessed. Now, I want to go even deeper into this fascinating relationship between focus and achievement. There are specific techniques that can help you strengthen your focus muscle and create boundaries that others will respect, all while maintaining healthy relationships with those who matter most. If you're recognizing how much of your attention has been hijacked by others' agendas, type "reclaiming my focus" in the comments below. This simple act of acknowledgement is often the first step toward a profound shift in how you guard your most precious resource, your attention. Interestingly, as we analyze the dynamics of power and human behavior, we uncover a fundamental paradox. True power rarely announces itself. Those who possess genuine influence understand that power thrives in subtlety, not spectacle. Think about the most effective leaders throughout history. They didn't need to constantly remind others of their authority. Their power was evident through their actions, decisions, and the quiet respect they commanded. This brings us to the concept of the mask. a fascinating psychological mechanism employed by those who understand power's true nature. When someone constantly broadcasts their power, they're typically compensating for its absence. The powerful individual keeps their cards close, revealing only what serves their purpose. It's a strategic concealment that protects their advantage. Consider how this plays out in everyday scenarios. The colleague who quietly solves problems without seeking recognition often wields more influence than the one demanding credit. The investor who moves silently accumulates wealth, while those announcing their every trade become predictable. The mastermind behind significant changes rarely stands at the podium. This masking of intentions isn't necessarily deceptive. It's a form of protection. By concealing your full capability, you maintain an element of unpredictability that serves as a shield against those who might exploit knowledge of your strengths and weaknesses. In the journey toward personal empowerment, learning when to reveal and when to conceal becomes a crucial skill. What's particularly revealing about this principle is how it operates across different domains of life. In negotiations, relationships, career advancement, and even personal growth, those who understand the power of understatement often achieve transformative results. They recognize that true influence doesn't need validation through constant external approval. The hidden truth here challenges our social media-driven culture where everything is curated for maximum visibility. Real power moves operate behind the scenes, creating impact through carefully calculated actions rather than carefully filtered posts. The modern obsession with appearance over substance represents a fundamental misunderstanding of how influence genuinely functions. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how this principle manifests in specific environments and how you can recognize when someone truly understands the power dynamic versus when they're merely posturing. The distinction becomes increasingly important as you navigate complex professional and personal relationships. If this perspective on power dynamics has shifted your understanding, write "Power moves quietly" in the comments. When we truly understand emotional detachment, we discover it's not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It's about reclaiming your power. Think about it. When someone can reliably trigger your anger, sadness, or insecurity, they essentially have a roadmap to controlling your behavior. This is the hidden mechanism behind most manipulation tactics. I've watched countless intelligent people make catastrophic decisions simply because they were emotionally compromised, their judgment clouded by feelings they couldn't regulate. The transformation begins when you realize that your emotions, while valid and important, don't have to dictate your actions. This journey toward emotional sovereignty isn't easy. Our society often celebrates emotional reactivity, calling it passion or authenticity, while quietly dismissing the profound strength found in measured response. But here's the revelation that changed everything for me. Emotions themselves aren't the problem. It's our attachment to them, our identification with them, that creates our vulnerability. When you master detachment, you create a slight but crucial pause between stimulus and response. In that space lives your freedom. You can observe the incoming emotional wave without being swept away by it. This doesn't mean suppressing feelings, quite the opposite. It means experiencing them fully while maintaining your center. Consider how this applies to your everyday interactions. When someone criticizes you harshly, instead of immediately defending or attacking, detachment allows you to ask, what's true about this? What's this person's motivation? How should I strategically respond? You're no longer predictable, and therefore you're no longer easily manipulated. The most powerful negotiators Leaders and strategists throughout history weren't emotionless. They were emotionally intelligent, using detachment as a deliberate practice. They understood that whoever reacts first often loses the advantage. They knew that displaying precisely the right emotion at the right time, by choice rather than compulsion, is an extraordinary form of influence. Now, I want to go even deeper into this practice of strategic detachment and show you how it fundamentally reshapes not just your interactions, but your entire decision-making framework. When we examine the most successful people in any field, we notice this common thread. They've mastered the art of emotional regulation while maintaining their authentic connection to themselves and others. The impact of this skill extends far beyond avoiding manipulation. It transforms how you handle conflict, make important choices, and navigate uncertainty. It's the difference between being driven by external forces and being guided by your own internal compass. The most profound shift happens when you realize that detachment doesn't distance you from life's richness. It actually allows you to experience it more fully without being controlled by it. If what I'm saying resonates with your experiences, drop emotional sovereignty in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have already been practicing this powerful approach in your own lives. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because we've uncovered something truly transformational in these principles. When we practice detachment, we're not being cold or unfeeling, quite the opposite. We're creating space between our ego and the outcomes we desire. Think about that feeling when you desperately want something, that clutching sensation in your chest. That desperation actually repels what you want because it broadcasts neediness and scarcity. The journey toward mastery requires us to care deeply about our craft, but remain oddly detached from the fruits of our labor. It's a beautiful paradox that creates tremendous inner power. By releasing the death grip on outcomes, you gain the freedom to act with clarity and precision. The most successful people I've studied share this quality. They work intensely toward their goals while maintaining an almost philosophical acceptance of whatever happens. This mindset revelation connects perfectly with controlled aggression. There's a misconception that aggression means constant forward pressure, but that's amateur thinking. True power comes from knowing exactly when to strike. It's the difference between a novice boxer who throws punches constantly and a champion who waits for the perfect opening before delivering a devastating blow. Behind the scenes of every master negotiator, entrepreneur, or leader is this ability to remain patient, even passive, at times, but then apply sudden, decisive pressure at the exact right moment. They understand the rhythm of interaction, the natural ebb and flow, and use it to their advantage rather than fighting against it. I've witnessed this firsthand in business dealings where someone maintains complete composure during tense negotiations, then precisely identifies the moment to make their move. The impact is always more powerful because it comes from a place of strategic clarity rather than emotional reactivity. This hidden truth applies equally in personal relationships. When you're not desperately seeking validation or agreement, but instead operating from a place of genuine self-assurance, you become magnetic. People sense that you don't need their approval, which paradoxically makes them more likely to give it. The beauty of these principles is how they compound over time. Each small victory builds upon the last, creating a reservoir of confidence that fuels further success. The path isn't always linear. There will be setbacks, but the underlying trajectory remains upward when you embody these concepts consistently. What's particularly fascinating is how these approaches work across virtually all domains of human interaction. Whether in career advancement, personal relationships, or even physical training, the fundamentals remain consistent. The person who masters patience combined with precise action will always outperform the frantically busy competitor in the long run. If you're nodding your head right now thinking, this resonates with my experience, drop a comment below saying strategic patience. I'd love to know who among you has discovered this powerful dynamic already. This balance of aggression is actually where most leaders falter. While pure aggression might win you a battle, it rarely wins you the war. The most formidable figures in history understood this delicate equilibrium. Take someone like Augustus Caesar, who could be ruthless when needed, but knew precisely when to show clemency. This strategic restraint is what transformed Rome from a republic into an empire that lasted centuries. When your aggression lacks boundaries, you create enemies who wait patiently for your inevitable moment of weakness. I've seen this pattern repeat countless times in business negotiations. The person who explodes and threatens everyone might get immediate compliance, but they're simultaneously planting seeds of rebellion. Their team members smile to their face while updating their resumes behind closed doors. The transformation happens when you understand that true power isn't about making people afraid of what you'll do to them. It's making them concerned about what might happen without you. This subtle distinction represents the difference between a tyrant and a leader who creates a lasting legacy. History consistently shows us that pure fear-based leadership creates spectacular downfalls, while respect-infused authority builds empires. What's particularly fascinating is how this principle manifests in unexpected places. Consider how parents discipline children. Those who rely solely on intimidation often raise rebellious teenagers, while those who balance firm boundaries with earned respect develop responsible adults. The underlying mechanism is identical across all human relationships, from the boardroom to international diplomacy. Now, I want to go even deeper into this psychological territory. The hidden truth about power is that it's never really about domination. It's about influence. The greatest wielders of power throughout history understood that controlling someone's actions through fear is temporary, but capturing their imagination through respect creates devotion that transcends circumstances. This is the journey from being merely obeyed to being genuinely followed. When we examine how people respond to pure aggression versus calibrated strength, the neurological patterns are revealing. The brain processes threats differently than it processes respect. Threats activate our survival instincts, putting us in a reactive state where we're focused on self-preservation, not innovation or loyalty. Respect, however, activates our higher cognitive functions, enabling collaboration and commitment that fear could never produce. If you're reflecting on your own leadership approach while watching this, drop "balance is power" in the comments if you recognize this principle at work in your own life experiences. Now let's take a moment to understand an important distinction that rarely gets articulated in power dynamics. There's a profound difference between making decisions out of fear versus making them from a place of respect. When you operate from fear, you're essentially handing over your personal power. Your moves become reactive, predictable, and often self-limiting. But when you operate from respect, you maintain your autonomy while acknowledging the legitimate power or capability of another. Think about it in your own life. How many choices have you made because you were afraid of the consequences rather than because you genuinely respected the situation? This subtle shift in mindset creates an entirely different trajectory in how influence unfolds around you. I've seen this transformation in countless situations where people initially approach power dynamics like a game of checkers, simple, direct, and ultimately limiting. The real masters of influence approach it like chess, with strategy, foresight, and an understanding of the complex interplay between all pieces on the board. They recognize that sometimes you need to sacrifice a pawn to position yourself for a more advantageous move 3 steps ahead. The journey toward mastering influence is one of patience. Most people want immediate results, but true power often lies in the unseen, in the ability to plant seeds of influence that may not bear fruit until much later. This is why many misunderstand power as merely being loud or forceful, when in reality, it's often the quiet, deliberate actions that create the most significant impact. I remember working with a client who was constantly frustrated by her inability to gain traction in her organization. She was talented and hard-working, but she approached every interaction as a battle to be won. When she shifted to seeing influence as a chessboard, she began to make strategic alliances, understand the motivations of others, and position herself at the intersection of important initiatives. 6 months later, her visibility and impact had completely transformed, not because she changed her abilities, but because she changed her approach. Behind the scenes of every powerful individual is this understanding. Genuine influence isn't about controlling others. It's about creating the conditions where others choose to align with your vision. It's a subtle but revolutionary shift in perspective. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to effortlessly command attention and respect without ever raising their voice? That's the difference between superficial power and genuine influence. And it's available to anyone willing to master these principles. If something I've shared here resonates with how you've experienced power dynamics in your own life, write in the comments. Power isn't force, it's influence. Now, I want to go even deeper into how these principles manifest in everyday interactions. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic of authentic influence and how it's fundamentally about your relative positioning. Think of positioning as the quiet power that shapes how others perceive your value without you having to announce it. When we understand the psychology behind human interactions, we realize that influence isn't about trying to convince others of our worth. It's about embodying it so naturally that it becomes undeniable. This is where the transformation really happens. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that influence is something we chase externally. More followers, more engagement, more validation. But the hidden truth is that sustainable influence flows from a deep inner certainty that transcends these metrics. When you operate from this place, you're no longer at the mercy of others' approval. Consider how differently we respond to someone who's constantly trying to prove their expertise versus someone who simply demonstrates it through their actions and presence. The latter creates a gravitational pull that feels effortless because it is. They're not performing influence, they're channeling it. This journey toward authentic influence requires a fundamental mindset shift. Instead of asking, how can I get people to listen to me? Start asking, what unique value am I positioned to offer that others cannot? This subtle reframing moves you from a place of neediness to a place of service, which paradoxically increases your influence exponentially. The most powerful aspect of this approach is how it liberates you from the exhausting game of constant self-promotion. When your positioning is clear and your inner authority is solid, you create space for genuine connection rather than transactional relationships. People are drawn to those who know who they are and what they stand for. It creates a sense of safety and trust that no marketing tactic can replicate. Behind the scenes of every influential relationship is this dance of positioning. It's not about being higher than others. It's about being firmly rooted in your unique place in the ecosystem of ideas and value. From this grounded stance, you can reach out horizontally rather than trying to pull others down or push yourself up. The revelation that many miss is that true influence doesn't deplete your energy, it generates it. When you're operating from a place of inner authority rather than external validation, each interaction becomes an opportunity for mutual growth rather than a drain on your resources. If what I'm sharing resonates with your experience of building genuine influence, write in the comments, Inner Authority Unlocked. I'd love to know how this perspective shifts your approach to showing up in your sphere of influence. Discipline is a force that builds from the inside out, reshaping how we relate to ourselves and our commitments. Think about the profound sense of trust you develop in yourself when you follow through consistently, day after day. This reliability becomes your foundation, your inner authority. It's not about strict regimens or harsh self-punishment. Rather, it's the gentle yet unwavering agreement you make with yourself to honor your word, especially when no one's watching. The transformative power of this inner authority cannot be overstated. When you consistently align your actions with your stated values and intentions, something remarkable happens in your psychological landscape. You begin to trust yourself deeply. This self-trust creates a quiet confidence that doesn't need external validation or constant reassurance. It's the hidden truth behind people who seem unshakable in their convictions. They've built an unbreakable alliance with themselves through their consistent actions. What's fascinating is how this inner authority translates to external perception. Others can sense this congruence in you. They feel your words carry weight because your actions have demonstrated reliability. This isn't about dominating others or wielding power over them. Quite the opposite. True authority emerges from integrity, the seamless connection between what you say and what you do. In a world filled with empty promises and hollow commitments, this congruence becomes your signature, your legacy. The journey toward building this authority requires patience. Every small promise you keep to yourself, whether it's waking up when you said you would, completing tasks on schedule, or maintaining boundaries you've set, adds another brick to this foundation. Even more revealing is how you handle the inevitable failures and setbacks. Do you use them as excuses to abandon your path, or do you view them as valuable feedback, adjusting your approach while maintaining your commitment? Behind the scenes of every consistent life is a series of pivotal moments where someone chose discipline over momentary comfort. These daily decisions might seem insignificant in isolation, but collectively, they create a powerful momentum. Your neural pathways actually strengthen with each consistent action, making discipline progressively easier. What once required tremendous willpower eventually becomes second nature, a beautiful example of how our habits shape our character over time. Now, I want to go even deeper into this dimension of personal authority by exploring how consistency creates a unique form of freedom. When you develop reliable patterns in your life, you free up tremendous mental and emotional energy. You're no longer caught in the exhausting cycle of decision fatigue or the guilt that comes from constantly breaking promises to yourself. Instead, you create a solid framework that becomes the backdrop against which your creativity and spontaneity can flourish. If you recognize this pattern in your own life, how consistency has created freedom rather than restriction, write "Inner Authority Unlocked" in the comments. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic of legacy. You see, when we talk about legacy, we're really discussing something that transcends mere reputation. Many people confuse these concepts, believing that a carefully managed public image is the same as leaving a meaningful mark on the world. But the hidden truth is that legacy is fundamentally action-based, not perception-based. Think about the individuals throughout history whose impact we still feel today. Their legacies weren't built on carefully crafted tweets or perfectly filtered photos. Their legacies emerged from consistent, meaningful actions taken over time, often when no one was watching, when there was no immediate reward, when the journey seemed impossible. This is where the real transformation begins in our understanding of legacy. It's not about being remembered. It's about creating something that continues to serve others long after you've moved on. It's about planting trees whose shade you'll never sit under, as the saying goes. There's something profoundly humbling about this realization, that our greatest contributions might be the ones that outlast our own recognition. The construction of such a legacy inevitably involves enduring through periods of doubt. This is perhaps the most challenging aspect of legacy building that few discuss openly. Every visionary, every change maker, every person who's created something of lasting value has faced moments where they questioned everything, their abilities, their direction, their purpose. These moments of uncertainty aren't just obstacles to overcome. They're essential crucibles that refine our intentions and strengthen our resolve. When you persist through doubt, you're making a declaration about what truly matters to you. You're saying, this work is worth doing, even when it's difficult, even when I'm unsure, even when no one else believes in it. What's fascinating about this perspective is that it completely shifts the mindset around legacy. It's no longer about ego or immortality. It's about service and impact. It's about making decisions today that honor both the past you've learned from and the future you hope to influence. Remember that your legacy isn't just some distant endpoint. It's being written right now, in real time, through the choices you make daily. The small kindnesses, the hard conversations, the ethical stands, the generous contributions. These are the building blocks of something that extends beyond your lifetime. If this perspective on legacy resonates with you, write in the comments, "Legacy in progress," because that's exactly what we're all creating day by day, choice by choice. Beyond winning battles with our external opponents, what I find truly transformative is how legacy shapes even our foes' perception. When we pursue excellence relentlessly, even our enemies must acknowledge the impact we leave behind. This isn't about forcing recognition. It's the natural result of consistent, undeniable contribution. Think about the most influential figures throughout history. While they all had critics and opponents, their legacy commanded respect precisely because it couldn't be ignored. Martin Luther King Jr. faced fierce opposition, yet today even those who might have disagreed with his methods acknowledge his profound impact. This reveals a hidden truth about meaningful work. When done authentically, it transcends personal rivalries. The journey toward building such a legacy involves tests that few are willing to endure. Personal sacrifice becomes inevitable. We must frequently choose between immediate comfort and long-term significance. I've experienced this countless times in my own life, declining easier paths that offered quick rewards in favor of the deeper, more challenging work that aligned with my purpose. Discipline remains the backbone of every lasting legacy. It's the quiet, behind-the-scenes commitment that the public rarely witnesses, the consistency of showing up when motivation wanes, the dedication to refining skills when no one's watching, the willingness to maintain standards even when shortcuts present themselves. What many don't realize is that these tests of legacy, sacrifice, and discipline actually reveal our true character. They strip away pretense and expose our authentic priorities. In those moments of choosing between what's easy and what matters, we discover who we really are. Now, I want to go even deeper into this remarkable dynamic of legacy building. The fascinating paradox is that while we often think about legacy as something we leave behind, it's actually something we live into every day. Each decision either strengthens or weakens the foundation we're establishing. The small choices accumulate into the structure that eventually stands as our contribution. The path of legacy building transforms us in ways we couldn't predict at the outset. The person who emerges through consistent sacrifice and disciplined effort becomes someone who naturally commands respect, not because they demand it, but because their character and contribution speak volumes. If this perspective on legacy resonates with your own experience, write "building quietly" in the comments below. Unlocking human influence requires a special kind of literacy, reading the untold stories behind facial expressions, posture shifts, and subtle tones. This skill transforms ordinary interactions into deeper connections. I've noticed in countless negotiations how the person who can interpret these unspoken signals often gains the upper hand. without others even realizing what happened. Think about the last time you felt someone really understood you. Chances are they weren't just hearing your words, they were observing your entire communication ecosystem. This perceptiveness creates a psychological bridge that makes influence feel less like persuasion and more like alignment. Now I want to go even deeper into this fascinating realm of shadow influence, a concept that has revolutionized how I approach personal and professional relationships. The most influential people I've encountered rarely announce their power. Their influence operates like gravity, invisible yet undeniably present. They've mastered what I call presence influence, the ability to shift energy in a room without saying a word. This reminds me of a revelation I had while observing a leadership summit where the most respected figure barely spoke during the first hour. Yet everyone oriented themselves around him, seeking subtle nods of approval or noticing his minimal reactions. His influence wasn't declared, it was felt. This silent authority often carries more weight than explicit attempts to control outcomes. The journey toward developing this kind of influence begins with self-awareness. When you understand your own communication patterns, both verbal and non-verbal, you can deliberately calibrate them in different contexts. This internal alignment creates an authentic presence that others intuitively trust. It's the difference between demanding attention and naturally attracting it. What fascinates me most about shadow influence is how it transcends traditional power dynamics. You don't need a title or formal authority to possess it. I've witnessed service staff completely transform customer experiences through nothing more than centered presence and attentive energy. Their influence wasn't granted by position, but earned through mindful authenticity. Learning to harness this quiet power requires patience and practice. It begins with truly being present, not just physically but mentally and emotionally invested in each interaction. This complete attention creates a magnetic field that naturally draws others into your rhythm and perspective. If any of these insights have resonated with your own experiences of influence, write "shadow power activated" in the comments. Now there's another dimension to influence that completely changed my understanding of persuasion, and it directly builds on these shadow principles. Isn't it fascinating how balance plays such an essential role in our pursuit of wealth? This delicate dance between patience and decisive action has been the downfall of countless aspiring millionaires. When I observe truly successful individuals, I notice they possess an almost supernatural ability to wait for the perfect moment and then strike with absolute conviction. Remember that financial transformation isn't merely about knowledge or strategy. It's a profound journey that demands something deeper, the courage to abandon your comfort zones and confront your weaknesses head-on. This is where the hidden truth of wealth creation resides, in the internal battles we fight when no one is watching. I once mentored a client who had all the right information, connections, and opportunities, yet remained financially stagnant for years. What was holding him back? After several deep conversations, we uncovered his deeply rooted fear of outshining his struggling family members. His unconscious loyalty to their financial status quo was silently sabotaging his every move. The breakthrough came when he realized wealth creation wasn't a betrayal of his roots, but rather an expansion of his capacity to contribute meaningfully to those he loved. This mindset shift, this internal revolution, unlocked everything else. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic of psychological barriers. You see, the wealthy don't just think differently about money, they experience it differently. Where the average person sees risk, they perceive opportunity. Where most see expense, they recognize investment. This perceptual transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it's absolutely essential for lasting wealth. Consider how the wealthy approach failure. Rather than viewing it as a devastating setback, they treat it as valuable market research. Each no brings them closer to understanding what adjustments are needed for a yes. This resilience isn't innate. It's cultivated through intentional practice and perspective shifts. What's truly remarkable is how these wealth principles transcend cultural boundaries and economic systems. Whether in bustling metropolitan centers or rural communities, the fundamental truths about wealth creation remain consistent. It's about value exchange, not manipulation. It's about solving problems, not chasing shortcuts. The journey toward financial abundance inevitably reveals aspects of yourself you never knew existed, both strengths and weaknesses. This self-discovery process becomes as valuable as the wealth itself, shaping not just your bank account, but your character, relationships, and legacy. If you're nodding your head while reading this because it resonates with your own financial journey, write "Truth Revealed" in the comments. I'd love to know which of these principles hit closest to home for you. The balance between shadow and flame within the realm of men creates a fascinating dynamic that keeps everything in motion. This unpredictability is actually a gift. It ensures that life never becomes stagnant. Think about it. When every outcome is certain, where's the thrill of the journey? Where's the motivation to push beyond boundaries? The greatest men in history understood that living at the edge of chaos and order is where true evolution happens. When I speak of claiming one's throne, I'm not talking about external validation or power over others. This is about sovereignty, the profound understanding that you alone are responsible for your kingdom. This journey toward personal sovereignty often requires periods of solitude, moments where you disconnect from the noise of society and reconnect with your inner voice. These times of isolation aren't punishment. They're transformation laboratories where your character is forged. Many men today are afraid of being alone with their thoughts. They fill every moment with distractions, social media, entertainment, or empty conversations to avoid confronting what lies beneath the surface. But the truth remains, no great king was crowned without first spending time in the wilderness. This solitude is where you learn to rule yourself before attempting to impact the world around you. The hidden truth about this sovereignty is that it creates a paradox. The more you develop self-sufficiency, the more others are drawn to your energy. When you no longer need external validation, you become a magnet for opportunity and connection. This is the mystery that few men discover. True strength comes not from dominance over others, but mastery over oneself. Now I want to go even deeper into this principle of sovereignty. Consider how this manifests in your daily decisions. Each choice you make either reinforces your position as ruler of your realm or subtly abdicates your throne to external forces. Those unconscious moments where you hand over your authority, whether to societal expectations, the opinions of others, or your own unchecked impulses. Those are the moments where your kingdom begins to crumble. The journey toward reclaiming this throne isn't always comfortable. In fact, the initial stages often feel like a crisis of identity. Everything you once used to define yourself starts to fall away. Relationships might change, old habits will certainly be challenged, and the comfortable narratives you've told yourself will be exposed for what they truly are. This is the necessary dissolution that precedes rebirth. If you're resonating with these ideas, write in the comments, "I'm reclaiming my throne." I'd love to hear about your own journey towards sovereignty. If you've stayed with me this far, you're clearly someone who understands the value of diving deep rather than skimming the surface. That's rare in today's world, and it speaks to something powerful within you. This journey towards sovereignty isn't something that happens overnight. It's a daily practice of choosing yourself, honoring your truth, and Building your kingdom one decision at a time. The principles we've explored today are just the beginning. If this conversation has sparked something in you, subscribe to join our brotherhood of seekers and builders. Each week, we explore another dimension of masculine growth and sovereignty. Let me know you made it to the end by commenting, "I'm reclaiming my throne," below. Your acknowledgement isn't just words. It's a declaration of intent that sets energy in motion. If you found value here today, a simple like helps this message reach other men who might be standing at the crossroads you once faced. There's a video right here that explores how to maintain your sovereignty in challenging relationships. Click and continue with me over there. The journey is just beginning.